I was really keen on putting events on that weren't sort of aimed at the 100 Marathon Club type people, but would still get them to come along. I like to say we, because it makes it sound less like I'm sort of doing it out of the front room, which is what I do. But the we is really me. So, I mean, you've been there on race days. You know that my mum and dad are there. But when it comes to everything else, the setting up, the sorting the venues out, or the paperwork, everything else, that's just me sitting there doing it. We don't really get ourselves turn up. We get nice people turn up. So the sort of person that's going to come and run 8 laps around a forest on a Tuesday morning isn't the sort of person that's going to be like elbows out and really aggressive with it. We get some incredibly good runners turn up, but when they turn up, they get in the attitude with everybody else. They're just nice, friendly people. It's a strange old time. There won't be the same companies on the other side as there are on this side if it goes on for much longer, because if you're reliant on one race and you've spent out a lot of money already, then you're a bit stuck.
Hi, my name is Michelle Lewis. 10 years ago, you'd have been lucky to see me run to the end of the road. These days, running is second nature to me. From marathons to park runs to putting my own running group through their paces. You'll often see me in suitably loud attire, getting ready to pound the pavements. And here's a secret, if I can do it, you can too. There's so many wonderful and inspiring stories in the world of running. And not just running, some of my favourite tales involve those who take to their wheelchairs, bikes, or simply their own trusty feet in an attempt to get fitter, faster, or just have some fun. In this podcast, I'm going to be in conversation with some of the most inspiring and fascinating of these people. Remember, it's your time, your speed, your way. The only person you need to keep up with is yourself. Welcome to episode 8 of my Running Tales podcast. I've been speaking this week to Paul Albon, who is the race director for Big Bear Events. If you've never taken part in a Big Bear event, how can I describe it? Basically, it's about how far you can and want to run in 6 hours. Competitors run everything from a 5k to an ultramarathon, and everyone gets a beer, cider or fruit juice at the end. Pretty cool, hey? So today we welcome Paul, who's part of Big Bear Events. I'm quite excited to share his story. Big Bear Events is something that I like to take part in each year, and upset so far that with the virus that I've not been able to. So I'm going to hand you over to Paul and we're going to find out about his running tale. So Paul, would you like to explain yourself and how your journey began? Was it at school?
Yeah, so I mean, running wise, so when I was at school, I used to, I was a big football fan. Used to love playing football, but essentially I was the short fat kid. So then I didn't want to go to uni being the short fat kid. So obviously I can't make myself taller. So I thought I'd start running to lose weight essentially. And so I did a little bit during sixth form, just running around town, whatever. Then used to do quite a bit when I was at uni. I went to uni in Aberystwyth, so everywhere was hilly. This is in the middle of Wales. So sort of quite enjoyed it then. I think I did my first event while I was at uni. I did 10k. Didn't really realise that there were other marathons or anything beyond London, like most people. And then moved to London with work and started doing a couple of events. And then we got married and moved out to Rochester in Kent. And then I started doing, that was in 2012. Well, actually, no, tell a lie. That was in 2010. But in 2012, I was working in London and I was bank manager. And my branch was in central London. And so I went to watch some of the tri that was on there. And the road race went past my branch. We had to close for that. And that sort of got me interested in that sort of stuff. And so I started doing triathlons in 2012. Okay. I'd done London at that point, maybe. I think maybe 2012 was my first year for London, I think. And so I've done some triathlons. I've done half Ironman, and then somebody at my tri club.
2012, that was the Olympics.
Yeah.
So did that give you extra inspiration?
Yeah, so I'm not sure I'm worth 10 billion, but I definitely got like Olympic fever.
Okay.
I don't think I'll be winning anything it's a good job with the cancelled Tokyo, but I definitely wouldn't be winning anything, let's put it that way. But I got caught up in that. I mean, London was phenomenal going in on the train. It was just, compared to how it is at the moment.
Yes.
But yeah, so I started doing some triathlons, and somebody in the tri club was like, you should try and do ultras. Never really heard of them. And then they were doing like a few 100-milers. There was somebody in there doing Marathon des Sables.
Yes.
This is amazing. So I started doing ultras. Well, I started trying to do ultras, and I planned it so that I'd do the North Downs 100, and we'd planned on trying to have kids or whatever. And I thought, all right, I've got to do it because there's a lot of training. And then I'd got in, and then we were pregnant. My wife was pregnant with twins that were due in the November, and the event was in the August. So it's like, right, well, if I don't do it now, I'm probably not going to be able to train properly for like 10 years. Which was wise, because that's correct. That was 5 years ago. But I've sort of kept doing ultras, but not 100-milers. I didn't complete the 100. I got to 72, which is Rochester, which is where I was living.
72.
Yeah, well, sort of. If it was a 72-mile race, then I'd been really happy. But when it's a 100-mile race, when you've still got over a marathon left, you can't help but feel like you've not really got anywhere near it. But I loved it, and that was with Centurion Running, and I loved what they did. And I sort of thought, well, this is brilliant. This is great fun. And then the twins turned up, and then I moved up to the Midlands, so we could be closer to family. And I couldn't work as a teacher at the time. I couldn't work and put the kids in childcare because I'd have lost money every month. So it was kind of right. So I've got to leave my job to look after the twins. So that's why I've essentially been a stay-at-home dad for 4.5 years. And then with that, Big Bear came off the back of that. So I'd run in some of the Saxons, Vikings and Normans, the SVN stuff down in Kent. Thought, well, this is quite good. And we came up to the Midland. When we were looking to move up here and up to Rugby, there's not really anything like that in the Midlands as such. So you've got Enigma that go out on Milton Keynes around the lakes. Yes. That's quite a niche.
Under 4 miles each lap.
Yeah, so I think they have like a big lake and a little lake, but the little lake is
Caldecott. Yeah, Caldecott Lakes.
18 laps, maybe 18 laps of the marathon. So that's quite
a few.
Yeah, and I was really keen on putting events on that weren't sort of aimed at the 100 Marathon Club type people, but would still get them to come along. So with our events, with the Big Bear events, they're just in nice places. So they're for people that just want to come and run a 10K or a half marathon or their first ultra or whatever it is. But it's actually a nice place to run, regardless of what your level of ability is or like what your aims are for the day. It's not the sort of thing you turn up and you're blind. This is going to be right.
Where was the first Big Bear?
First one we did was at Wrighton Pools, near Coventry. So we've been back there 4 times. We were due to go back there 3 times this year as well, but we've been back there once. Sorry. At the moment, next one is still on, but I'd imagine that will end up getting pulled because that's in June. So yeah, Wrighton Pools is really good because it's also close to home, so it makes it nice and easy to sort of 20-minute drive to go and set up. But the quantity of venues that we can use in the Midlands is huge. The amount of
I noticed from last year you was growing in venues, and this year you was meant to be expanding to even more, which was exciting. Yeah, because it was like, oh wow, another event, great.
Yeah, so essentially I had the twins, and then I was like, right, well, I'll move, and I really fancy trying to do this. I'd sort of thought, and then I thought, well, I've got to give it a go to see if I can do it. I've never organised an event.
Was you a one-man team?
Yeah. So I like to say we, because it makes it sound less like I'm sort of doing it out of the front room, which is what I do. But the we is really me. So I mean, you've been there on race days. You know that my mum and dad are there volunteering, and they've volunteered at every event. So on the day, like the three of us do it really. But when it comes to like everything else, the setting up, the sorting the venues out, or the paperwork, everything else, that's just me sitting there doing it. So I try to be as responsive as possible. I like to try and make it look like it's an organisation of like 50 people working, but really it's just me working hard. But I like to sort of try and look bigger than we are, but try and be friendly, so that when people turn up, they're like, oh, it's just so friendly and personal. It's like, well, yeah, it's because you've dealt with one person the whole time.
But it makes a difference. It makes a difference. That's why I personally like it. But what draws me more to Big Bear is the forests. I don't know why. I never thought. And I'm not really a trail runner, because on even ground, I'm a road runner. That's it. But I did my first one at Salsea.
Yeah.
And it was March 2019. Because it was pretty local, and I thought, okay, 8 laps around the forest, this is going to be painful. But at the time, I was trying to chase numbers on marathons, and I thought I've got to give it a go, because I've done a Saxons once, Vikings and Normans. So I thought I'd try you. And what I noticed was, okay, 8 times, and it took me over 5 hours, but during the day, the forest changes, and it changes your way of running. Now, my first one, I was lucky. It was sunny. And the second one I did at Cannock Chase, and it chucked it from the moment I arrived.
It was horrific.
Again, the ground was changing, the forest, the smells, but it was also the volunteers, and like you said yourself, your mum and dad, you get used to the faces, the friendliness. But the volunteers, they're runners that have done the events as well, more than once, and just want to be part of it. It's just, are you finding that's what's attracting you, is because the events you're picking and how small it is and the community spirit?
Yeah, I mean, it's good. People like it. I mean, it's, you sort of, with anything really, but especially with sport, you put something on and you think, well, I'd quite like it, but I don't know if other people will. And they sort of have. I mean, that one at Cannock, the Birch Challenge, that was that was horrific. I mean, that was biblical rain all day. And then,
it was brilliant. It was good. I mean, everyone was just so high spirits, because you just had that attitude. Okay, I'm wet, I'm muddy, and I'm someone, to be honest, Paul, I hate being muddy. But it was just something about that day. I feel the people was just so uplifting. Yeah,
well, because everyone's sort of it's good on those events. We don't tend to get we don't really get ourselves turn up. We get nice people turn up. So the sort of person that's going to come and run 8 laps around a forest on a Tuesday morning isn't the sort of person that's going to be like elbows out and sort of really aggressive with it. And so we get some incredibly good runners turn up. It's not as though we get awful runners and they're all newbies. We get some very good, very experienced runners. But when they turn up, they get in the attitude with everybody else. They're just nice, friendly people. Because in my experience, trail runners tend to be quite nice people anyway. And it's just not as competitive or testosterone filled as a Sunday morning.
That's true. Marathon. I think that's one of the reasons why I like it as well.
Yeah, I mean, on a purely statistical side, we get more women than men at most of the events. So it's generally only a few. So it's generally sort of a 60-40-ish split. Every now and then it's not that, but overall, I mean, we've done over 20 events now, maybe 25-ish events.
So what year did you start?
So this is our 3rd year, so 2018,
Still
February 2018. Yeah, so the idea was in year 1 just to see if the concept would work. So we did 6 events, and it did. So it's like, okay, fine. So we'll start planning sort of like the next year. So last year we did 12 events, I think 12, 15 events. And then this year was meant to be the year that the twins started, well, they're in nursery, but full-time hours at school. And it was meant to be like the year that we cracked on, and I had 22 events planned. We've already cancelled 4. And I'd imagine there's going to be another 3 will go soon, because they've got 3 more in June. So I can't really see any more events being held before the autumn, essentially. So that's a bit of a kick in the balls, but the concept works, but I just need to try and make some money out of it. So
have you thought about virtual? A lot of the races now, they're doing virtual. So with your medals, because you name the location on the medal, have you thought about saying that are targeting people in those areas, saying?
Yeah, so the virtual medal, like the virtual racing, I mean, you had Susan on last week. So Susan runs in a lot of my events. She does virtual runner, and she's, I mean, essentially, without being rude to Susan, before I'd met Susan, I thought virtual run, this is a strange concept. And then I met her, and then she spoke, and I sort of have delved into her community. That it is amazing. She's got thousands and thousands of people on there. And you see the reasons people are doing it, and it's not, oh, it's just a training run. It's like, no, it's not. It means a lot more than that to a lot of people.
It does, yeah.
And if you're a 100-mile-a-week person, then fine, it's just a training run. But there's a lot of people that aren't. And I sort of see my events a little bit as a sort of a bridge between the virtual running, where people might be a bit sort of shy and sort of worried maybe about going to Sunday morning event, about being last and all this sort of stuff. And then and my events, really, I see that sort of sitting in the middle, because you can't really, I mean, technically there is a last place in our events, but in reality you're not.
Doesn't really work that way, does it?
No, I mean, we had a guy at our rugby event last year, did 52 miles in just over 6 hours. So he was actually the last person to finish, but he was flying. I mean, he was doing 22-minute, I mean, because it's just over 5K. So he was running like 7-minute miles the whole time.
The whole 6 hours.
But barely, like, we didn't really see him until the end. So, like, as you know, the aid station is quite a big thing at our events. We like to put what we sort of term as a kids picnic out. So we have a big aid station, lots of food.
Yeah, can you explain the actual events for those that are new to Big Bear? Like,
yeah, so laps running sounds like some sort of torture, and I don't think I'd do it. I wouldn't do it much as training. I mean, I've tried to do like laps of the house and things to pick up water, and you just stop after 2. But laps events are quite good, because it means that you'll rock up at 9 o'clock in the morning, you'll start together, and then if you've got club mates, I mean, we get quite a few from certain clubs that turn up, and you've got club mates, and you've got someone that's a ridiculously quick half marathon runner, someone that doesn't do over 10K, someone that's doing marathons, whatever it is. Rather than all having to find separate events, or finding an event and you see them at the start and then they're homing in the shower before you finish, you can just keep running together, and you sort of catch glimpses of the people as you go past, because it's on a lap. I learned pretty soon, or pretty quickly after we started, that people enjoy laps that aren't necessarily out and back, but have crossover points, because then you see people coming back towards you. So rather than sort of everybody going around in a circle chasing each other, try to make them sort of lollipop courses now, so that you go out, do a circle, and then come back sort of along the same path. There's crossover.
That's true.
points.
Yes, I never thought of it like that. Yes, you do.
Yeah. So I mean, Southsea, there's 2 points where you sort of just pass each other, but then also, like, as you go out from the start and you come back in, there's maybe, I don't know, 500 meters or something where you're sort of running past each other. So it means you'll see people as you go. So rather than sort of getting in your little rut and then there being maybe a minute in front of you and a minute behind, and then you're running on your own in the forest, you're continuously crossing people. So it makes it, because the events are small, so I think the most we've had, well, we were due to have 100 for our event in March that got called off. So the events are generally 75, 100 people. So if you've got 100 people spread over a 5K route, then you can spread out quite well. But if you then
Yes.
make them go backwards and forwards past each other, you see people a lot more. It makes it feel much busier without being busy. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to have congestion on the course, because we don't want to get in the way of, you know,
Pedestrians that use the event.
But you don't want to sort of be tripping over people. You don't want, when the fast person comes past and they want to get past you, you don't want them elbowing you out of the way. You want them just to be able to come past and say, oh, well done, which is what we get. And that's what's really good, is that it means that, you know, someone that's going to come and do a 3-hour half marathon can run in the same event and see the same person that's coming to do a 3.5-hour marathon, but you're not sort of being ushered along. There's no sweep behind, sort of, you know, I've been to some events where the medic essentially is the sweep and they're on their bike and they might as well be poking with a stick to make you go faster.
Yeah.
That's not fun for anyone. No one's doing that at our events. Generally speaking, the last person to finish is the person that's gone the furthest. They actually tend to be the winner, technically. But we try not to. I make a big thing of the 6-hour events to not sort of crown a winner, despite the fact that we do results and they are first, because they have come first. We don't want to make it a massive race. It's an event.
Well, what I noticed, like you said, because you know, friends can come, or, you know, running buddies, and they can do different, you know, distances. And I've noticed when I've spoken to runners, they've said, I'm only doing 1 lap today. And they might just do 1 lap, or others will say, I'm going to do a half marathon. And then they get the buzz going around and think, I'll just do another lap just because I'm enjoying it. And it's just so nice that you have that choice while you're running round. And I like the fact that you had one planned in June. Hopefully it happens, but it doesn't. And I'm suffering with IT band at the moment. But I feel like, well, if I'm fit enough for 1 loop, I'll still go. But if I can do a marathon, I will. There's just no pressure. It's relaxing. Yeah,
and that's what we tend to find. So I mean, you know, we've had the best one was, we had a lady who I think she was a nurse in Northampton, and she came and she was going to come and run her first 10k, and her boyfriend, I think, had come down from Scotland to Daventry just to come and run with her for her first 10k, and she ran 20 miles. So she'd never run 10k, and she just kept running. And she'd done 20 miles in, I don't know, 5.5 hours, something like that. It was a horrifically hot day as well. And it's just like, what other sort of event can you do that? You know, if she'd have entered a 10K, brilliant, she'd have done a 10K and she'd have been really happy. But she's pushed herself. And, you know, I'd sort of, again, try to get the balance between encouraging people to do another lap while not making them feel like they have to. Because you don't have to. It's fine.
Yes.
If you want to do 23.3 miles and not do 1 extra lap to do sort of 26, whatever it is.
Yes.
Always find that a bit strange, but fine. But that's up to you. That is completely up to you what you want to do. But we'll always sort of say, you know, another one. And it's just to try and encourage people to do it, because, like you say, you don't have to. You know, there's no time cut off. Well, there's the 6 hours, but it's not like you're going to lose or lose your place if you have to walk half a lap or whatever it is, and you've still done the distance. And it's how my story built into it is, until I started doing ultras, the concept of walking while going out for a run just was alien to me. Like, if you started walking, you'd failed. And then you do ultras and it's like, no, you walk the hills. It's like, it's quite hilly around here. It's like, we'll walk every hill then. And so I then learned that. So what I like to try and say to people is, I'm trying to bring the ultra mentality to shorter distances. So a lot of people describe ultras as a picnic with a long walk. And so that's why we've got all the food. So we have all the food out.
Can we talk about the food? It's brilliant. You always email us before the start saying, what do you want? And I must be the most boring person, because I say, please have a banana on the table, because that's another thing I like. I don't need to carry my camel pack. I don't need to carry food. I can run, they say naked, because, just my clothes, no rucksack and whatever
Yeah.
on your back for nutrition to get you through. And I turn up, I have my banana, but you have like watermelon, homemade cakes, and every lap I go round, there's different foods, and you're like, oh wow, and you don't feel guilty stopping, filling up, and then going on again. Who came up with that idea?
Well, again, I mean, that's me trying to, I guess the polite way to put it is taking people's best practices or copying what other people have done.
Yeah.
So when I did my ultras the first time round, I did the South Downs 50 with Centurion and the 100 miler with Centurion as well, the North Downs 100. And their events are the same. They're like their aid stations have got real food on them. They're just really good. And the cost of having some nice food out is nothing. Like somebody asked for Battenberg once, and I was like, yeah, I don't really like Battenberg, but I don't get it. No problem. It's like 80p, isn't it? It doesn't matter. And it gets eaten. So but
it makes such a difference.
Yeah, but it's such a simple thing to do. It's not, we hopefully do it well, but I don't understand why others don't necessarily do it. And having the variety, so we try to, I ask people what they want, and a lot of people don't know what they want because they've never really thought about it, because they've always carried the same things. The only thing that we don't have is gels, just because.
Yes, which is good.
I think it's the devil's stuff, and also
it's not good for my
stomach.
Expensive.
Well, they're so expensive, and people like their one that they have. And so if I have a different brand or a different flavour, they then won't have it, or they'll have it and they won't like it and throw it away. So, well, that's a waste of £1. Whereas I can buy a whole Battenberg for £1 or a whole bit of malt loaf. Again, that was something that I didn't really know people used to like. So I don't think we had that for the first events. But as we do more, we sort of worked out what people like. Somebody asked for fig rolls. I thought, well, okay, I like a fig roll, but what an odd suggestion. And blimey, we got through that in like about an hour. Like, people got through a whole packet of those. So now fig rolls are a sort of staple. Nutella wraps as well. Just whatever people want, we try and get. And it's good. It just means that people can, like the people that tend to either go longer or a bit slower, just have something to break up the monotony of running, and you can just get some real food in. Because I mean, I try my best to not run off sugar too much, and I would eat real food and run with it, a bit of fruit or whatever. But I'm not good. I don't just want jelly babies. Like, jelly babies is fine for your road half marathons. No. Well, and it's it does a job, but if I'm going to be running for 6 hours, I don't want jelly babies for 6 hours. Yeah, it's just not. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, I noticed also recycling. You've changed now. People bring their own cups, and you were talking about the gels as well. That was it the fault of not having to clear up wrappers and save the environment?
Well, I mean, this is when we go to new venues and we try and explain the concept and say, like, I want to come on a Wednesday in March and put an event on. So, okay, well, they sort of think the London Marathon's going to turn up and there's going to be just bottles everywhere and wrappers everywhere. And we've done, like I say, we've done 20, 25 events now, and I'm yet to pick up a piece of litter. So when I tend to go back the day after, or we'll get someone to go around at the end, and they'll pick up all the signs. And I'd sort of say to them, like, if you see litter out, then pick that up as well. We've yet to have anything left. To be honest, we tend to we have a few of our volunteers that are regular that actually go out and end up doing a litter pick, but it's not our stuff. It's like 3-year-old beer cans and things like that. So if anything, we end up leaving it cleaner. And the disposable cups, I mean, that's again an ultra trail thing, really, because you can't really justify it. Again, you're running London Marathon and you're trying to sort of every second marginal gains, all that, fine, maybe it matters. But if I'm going to run for 50 miles, the 3 seconds it takes to fill up a cup that weighs 6 grams, it means nothing. I'm going to lose that.
No.
I'll lose that easily somewhere else. It's not, I can easily lose hours in an aid station. Filling up a cup just doesn't, it's not worth it. For the shorter races, so we do some nighttime 10Ks as well, head torch 10Ks. For those,
yes,
we
I
do
marshalled at one at Salsey before Christmas.
Yeah, and that was really good. That was a great event, and
It really was.
We'll be back again next winter for that. And so we have water out. You were on the water station, weren't you, I think?
I was, yes.
Yeah,
I was.
So we have
in the
water
dark.
out for that, yeah. Well, you had a light. Make it sound. It's not quite as bad when you've got lights.
I was jealous of the runners because being at that water station, you're in the forest, it's dark, but it just something about it. It was just so dark. You could hear the animals, and it was just such a nice feeling. I was so jealous by the end of it that I wanted to run.
Yeah, it's a really good event. And if we're really lucky, we've done the 3 of those, and the plan was to have 3 summer versions at Wrighton Pools as well. But the first one's been cancelled. The next one's in June, so I don't know if they're going to happen this year. But we'll do those next year. So I've already got the medals. So
they'll definitely, after Salsey, definitely in Northampton, word got out, and I was expecting you to have a mad rush of entrants on your next one.
We had a lot more in January. So I think the problem with the December one was that it's December, and so people are sort of in Christmassy mode.
Yes.
And it's not a Christmas themed race or anything, and it's a weeknight. So people are like, I think the plan for this year is to have a late November event and then a January and February event. So to just sort of ignore December, and hopefully that will help with entries. Whether it does or not, I don't know. But entries are okay.
Yeah. Sorry, can I just ask why you just do weekdays?
I've got twins.
So it's perfect. No, because it is. You are the only event that I know of at the moment that does weekdays, which it's great.
So it's good unless you're a teacher. So I get a lot of teachers email me saying, it's on a weekday. It's like, I know. But
do you when the twins go off to secondary school and start being rebels and have that independence, will you expand to a Saturday or Sunday, do you think? Or do you like the fact that you've got the weekends free for your own time?
There is that. I guess there's 2 points to it, really. First of all, it's during the week, so it means that I don't have childcare issues and I can spend time with my family. I guess there's 3, but so I'm not the only one like that. The people that come to the events are also like that. So we get a few people that work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and take a day's holiday and come and run. Yeah. The majority of the people that are there don't work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. I remember we had a pair of runners come to Wrighton Pools, who came to Coventry, near Coventry, and they were from Skegness. Well, to me, Skegness is a long way.
Yes.
And they worked in retail. And so they worked every weekend. And so the one of the ladies that was running was like, well, I do all this training, and for what? Like, I have no events to do because they're all on a Saturday and Sunday. So yours are the only events that I can really get to, because there's a few around that do weekday events.
Yeah, Enigma do the odd Friday, don't they, and Monday.
Yeah. But it works around sort of modern Britain's sort of the way that people work. But there's also the point that, Southsea Forest, for example, they don't want me there on a Sunday morning because they can fill the car park full of regulars. That's why we don't do events on a Monday as well, because if I have to go and mark the course on a Sunday, I can't really be sure the signs will be there because it's full of people. So it's only got to take one numpty to go around and pick up all the signs. So it's twofold, really. Like I say, it's people want to run during the week because they can, and it makes it something different to do. But also the venues are much more open to us being there, and it's just so nice being in the forest. I remember going up to Cannock Chase and sort of scouting it out, because I grew up in the south, so I'd never been there before. So this place was amazing. I went up during the week with the twins. They were in a buggy at the time, and there were like 4 cars in the car park. This is a big car park for sort of these amount of cars. And then we went back as a family on a weekend in the summer holidays, And then I realised why the car park was so big, because it was absolutely rammed. There were hundreds
At
and
the
hundreds.
weekend, yeah.
And that's what happens. And so, yes, I could get more entrants on a weekend event, but they don't want me there. And it'd be all the bikes and all the kids and all the dogs and all that, everyone get in the way. So the running wouldn't be as much fun, because you'd be tripping over people. People would be annoyed that we were there, and essentially the landowners don't want us there. Whereas if I can say to Northamptonshire County Council, like for Brixworth, if I can say, right, well, I'll get 80 people to turn up, pay £4 or £5 to park. Well, that's money they weren't going to get, because
It's a weekday.
Yeah, so they weren't going to get those people there, so they're happy to have me. We don't annoy people, because it's just the 5 dog walkers that are there all the time, and our people are nice. And then you don't know we were there the day after. So the places are happy to have us, because we just bring in car parking money and a fee from me as well. So everybody's good for it. But we've got we hopefully in October, hopefully we'll have events by October. We're doing a 40-mile ultra point to point on a Sunday. So we'll do a few things on the weekend, and then we did the trails, tales and ales, which is a talk at the cidery. That was on a Saturday night as well. So do a few things, but I've got no intention of doing 20 events on a weekend every year, because I want to run in events.
It's true. You need to be a bit selfish.
Yeah, well, because I want it to be sustainable. I want to be doing this for sort of 15, 20 years or whatever, for the foreseeable, not for 3 years and then be resentful and then bin it in. Yeah.
So can I ask, another great thing about your event, we get a choice of cider or beer.
Yes.
Or soft drink. Now, come on, not everyone takes the soft drink. But what made you come up with this Big Bear drink afterwards?
So again, you look around, you see what's good, and you realise that. So it's difficult. People assign a value to something that isn't necessarily what it costs. So a medal, people think like, oh, this is a medal that's sort of been made specifically for the event. Oh, this is amazing, this is really good. They don't necessarily cost that much to make. Whereas a finisher's t-shirt, people are, this doesn't fit properly, this is rubbish. It costs a fortune. Like a finisher's t-shirt is a much more expensive than the medals are, unless you're getting really expensive medals or really cheap t-shirts. But it's very, very difficult to do that. And I mean, I have some of my t-shirts, but not many, and the waste is awful. So it's very bad.
But you do give medals out, though.
Yeah, so we do the medals. So I do the medals because I like medals. I think I try to make the medals sort of unique and small and sort of discreet and classy, rather than great big lumps of metal. So I don't really see the value in those personally.
No,
so I try to make
honest, them, I'm not a bling person.
But you can have like small and beautiful. It doesn't have to be 10 inches big to be sort of like, it doesn't need to be the medal that stands out on the medal rack. I mean, I have all my medals displayed in my little, in the spare bedroom / office.
Same
so
here.
We have all our medals up. Yeah, so we have all our medals up. So I do like, I like medals, and I try to be as efficient with them as possible. I try to make them as unique as possible. So I like the medals, but you want to get something else as well. So I'd seen a few events had done beers that you got at the end. I thought, well, that's good. So then I'm on now my 3rd brewery, and I've still been with Napson Cidery for the cider for the whole time as well. So we started off just doing beer and apple juice, so essentially alcoholic and non-alcoholic. And then somebody suggested cider. I thought, well, yeah, why not? So we've now got Big Bear cider, which is, I sometimes worry people think I've sort of made it in the garage. I don't make the cider of it. I'm not doing homebrew. This is award-winning, really nice stuff made by Church Farm Brewery in Warwick and Napton Cidery in Napton, just outside Daventry. They make the apple juice as well. So it's just really nice stuff, and they stick my label on it. But it's just something nice for people to get at the end, really. Like it goes different. Nicely. Yeah, it goes nicely with the medal, and then hopefully people take a few pictures, share it on social media, sort of gets it out there, sort of thing. So
definitely,
like I say, it's just something different to have. But again, the cost of those is a lot more than you'd think it would be. It's not the same as going down to Aldi and breaking up a 6-pack of Carling, sort of thing. Like it's more of an investment, but I sort of see it a bit as I guess advertising budget, if you want to say it like that.
Yeah. But you do also have your own T-shirts that people can buy, and buffs, and trying to think what you have. You do have,
We've got T-shirts, hats, non-buff buffs, and what else? We've got race magnets, things like that. So we've got merch.
It's up to the runner if they want to buy them and wear them on the event, which you do. You do get runners that do.
Yeah. So I think at last we've had well over 100 merch sales in the last 18 months or so. So there's quite a lot of it out there. And it's nice to see people wearing it, and it's even nicer to see people wearing it at different events as well. I'd rather people bought decent stuff that they want to wear rather than me give away crap that they don't want. Because as much as we'll like a freebie, I'm conscious of the amount of waste that we produce. Especially some events. I mean, we don't do sort of like goodie bags or anything at the end. If people are going to take things away with them, they can carry them the 5 meters to their car.
Exactly.
There's no need for a plastic bag. And we don't carry leaflets of things, but we've started teaming up with a few other, trying to do things with some other brands and whatnot. And we'll carry their flyers, and we'll have their flyers, but if you don't want it, you don't have to take it. That's a much better way of doing it. I'd rather have them out for 4 events than give them all out on one event and half of them end up in the bin in the car park. It's just not really sort of the look that we're going for. Like I say, we want to make it so that the day after an event, you wouldn't know we'd been there.
No. So obviously we've got the virus, and you're on a halt, as you've mentioned. You're frozen. Are you using this time to come up with ideas for 2021 and beyond? Does it give you a bit of a breather to think, actually, I'm going to use this time as a positive way?
Sort of. I mean, homeschooling twins isn't ideal. And I think
homeschooling.
No, well, they don't like. We tried that. They refused to do it. We did yoga every morning instead. Cosmic yoga. They love that. Which is strange, but they love that. And homeschooling in the loosest possible terms. But it's been strange. It's a very, very odd time because sort of before it all got, I guess, serious, and we all thought we were just going to be not shaking hands rather than shutting the country down. I'd sort of planned how I was going to make the events sort of as socially distanced as I could, sort of thing. And so you sort of put all the planning in, and then everything just gets cancelled. So I'm trying to do bits. It's very odd not really having any emails or messages or anything to deal with. So that's strange. I've got my 2021 calendar is planned at my end. I've agreed it with most of the landowners. So for the first 6 months, I'm set. We'll be doing the 40 miler again. And we're going to be doing a 12-hour event as well. And then we're going to be going to a couple of different venues, a few different series that we're going to do for next year as well. And also, I'd started doing it before the lockdown, but I've got a new website as well that I'll be trying to sort of push through during this time, being as no one's looking, so I can sort of put it up and play around with it while I've got no one actually wanting to visit the site, because nobody wants to book events.
Correct, yeah.
But it's a strange old time. There won't be the same companies on the other side as there are on this side if it goes on for much longer, because if you're reliant on one race and you've spent out a lot of money already, then you're a bit stuck. I mean, I'm lucky that as much as this is my sort of full-time job, my family isn't reliant on the money. We're reliant on my wife's earnings, and she's done okay during all of this. So that's okay. But if this is your primary income source, none of the stuff from the government has been applicable, because limited companies and company directors, it doesn't really cover you. And so it's really difficult. But I guess the Big Bear community have been really good and really supportive, because again, they're nice people, so they're going to be.
Of course we are.
It's been it is, and it makes a difference, because when I cancelled the first event, that was before the lockdown. Well, the event was on the Wednesday, and I think everything got locked down on the Monday, but I'd cancelled the event on the Friday maybe, and it was just horrible. Like I'd never envisaged having to cancel an event for any reason really, but everybody was incredibly supportive. I mean, once the country was locked down, it was a bit of a no-brainer.
It's because people understood it wasn't you. It was it's not you that's making the decision. Yeah,
and you know, people have essentially accepted taking a race credit or transferring it to another event. So it's good. I mean, if everybody demanded the money back straight away, then you've just got no cash, and so you then can't do anything. So hopefully people's goodwill will last. I do worry that if this goes on for, I don't know, more months, I don't think we're going to be locked down in our houses for 6 months, but it might be that long until there's sporting events outside.
Large groups, yeah.
And so the events are either going to change. I mean, luckily, no one's describing my events as large, so that should be okay. So we should be one of the first people back, but you know, that might not be till next year. We've got no idea. Yeah, I mean, I'm following England Athletics advice. Essentially, they insure all of my events. So if England Athletics say you can run events and the landowners let me turn up, then I'll run events. They'll be different somehow. I mean, I'll have to buy 6 tons of hand sanitizer, I assume, and gloves and things. I'll work it all out. But you know, I want to put events on as soon as I can, as long as the schools are back as well, because nobody needs 4-year-olds on the aid station.
No. Are you prepared though? Because you know, once this lockdown, you know what the runners are like. They are hungry to run, so you know.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, you know, I do think there'll be quite a lot of pent up demand, and people will be looking everywhere where they've not looked before for events, just because they want to do events. I don't. Some people are sort of think that maybe the extra runners that are out on the trails doing their sort of daily exercise, they'll start doing events. I'm not sure if they'll cross over as such, but I'd hope that if they did, it would be our sort of events that they'd come and try out first. Like you say, like there's trail running and there's trail running. I mean, I've done events in sort of like knee-high mud for 20 miles, and then our events are generally on sort of concreted forest paths, so you could sort of turn up in road shoes to quite a few of the venues. Not all of them, but some of them.
Cannock Chase when it's pouring with rain.
Yeah, well, I mean, but Cannock Chase when it's dry would have been all right. Anywhere with that rain, I mean, that was biblical. But generally speaking, they're good sort of introductions to trail races. So you get the feel of it, but you haven't got to navigate. You haven't got to get caked in mud. You've got to sort of bring loads of change of kit. And so it's a good introduction for people that have gone out and thought, oh, this is quite nice running around, not on the roads, which obviously it is. And so hopefully our events will get a nice kick once people know that they're going to be on. I mean, it's different with my events. Nobody's lost a penny really, because we've either transferred everybody or given them a race credit, or you know, and we've not set a time limit on that. So we've got people that haven't contacted us about the events that we had in last month. Well, if they contact
me, they just know.
Yeah, if they contact me in a month and say, "Can I do this one?" then that's fine, we'll do it. But not all organisers are in a position to be able to do that. And so, you know, it's going to be interesting. I mean, it's going to be interesting as a as a runner personally rather than as a race director, because there's events that I like that I hope will be there next year when we can run them again.
Yes. No. Well, so to round this off then, so obviously when we do get, active again, and how can people find out more about you? Because I do feel, okay, this is your third year, you are still young. So how, if those listening, how can they find out about you, and what's the process of booking a race with you, and also volunteering?
Yeah, so I try to be as active as possible across Instagram and Facebook. I don't really understand Twitter. So we share stuff to Twitter, but I don't really understand it. So it's Big Bear Events on all of those platforms. And then the website is bigbearevents.net. So all entries you can book through the website. The earlier you book it, the cheaper the events are. So if you book an event within the last month, you'll probably pay £10 more than the person that booked it 6 months ago. So always get on board as quickly as you can. So I try to be as active as possible on Facebook. Bit different at the moment because not really much to talk about. I don't like to just flood the internet full of rubbish running memes. So whenever we've got something to say, we'll say it. Hopefully it'll be about announcing events definitely being on soon, or our 2021 calendar.
So what do you make of Big Bear Events? Sold on the idea? I love them, and I encourage everyone to sign up to a race once we're out of this lockdown. As Paul said, there's a lot of events out there which are going to need our support. Let's hope they're all still going. What I really love about Big Bear Events is its inclusiveness. 5k fun runners can compete alongside super fast long distance athletes. Before I go, a quick reminder that if you like this week's podcast, please leave a review. It helps increase the number of people it can reach. Thanks for joining Paul and I this week. I look forward to your company again next Friday on the Running Tales podcast.